Okay, let's unpack this. Immaculate Constellation. It's quite a name, isn't it? Right away, it conjures up something, well, mysterious.
It really does, and it turns out it's the name of a 12-page report, something seen by an individual working, inside the U.S. government. That's the rabbit hole we're diving into today.
Right, so this deep dive, it's really focusing on the details of this report, this Immaculate Constellation, just as the person who found it remembers it.
Exactly, and where we're getting this from, it's excerpts from a pretty compelling YouTube interview where they lay out the whole experience.
Okay, so our mission here, for you listening, is basically to get the key info from the report itself and then trace what this whistleblower did next, trying to get this stuff out there.
We know you probably weren't the core stuff without getting totally bogged down.
Yeah, exactly. So we've tried to pull out the really surprising bits, the important stuff.
And it starts, interestingly enough, in a pretty mundane place, really. Just a shared server. That's where this individual apparently just stumbles across the Immaculate Constellation report.
Just there, on a shared drive. Wow.
Yeah.
And their first reaction wasn't exactly calm, I take it.
Not at all. First off, disbelief. They even wondered, could this be some kind of joke? Or maybe part of a war game scenario?
Which tells you how weird the content must have been, right?
Yeah.
If you're jumping to war game scenario.
Yeah.
So, okay, what was actually in this report?
Right, so it laid out 4 specific examples, 4 incidents. The first one, a big equilateral black triangle. Huge.
A triangle. Okay, where?
Over a Russian intelligence vessel out in the Pacific, and the report apparently noted its size was, comparable to the ships below it. Massive.
Whoa. Comparable in size to a ship. And over a Russian intel vessel. Did the Russians react?
That's the kicker. No observed Russian response at all. Just nothing.
A giant triangle hangs out over their spy ship, and they ignore it. That's bizarre. It's seriously strange. What can that even mean?
It's baffling. The report didn't speculate, but yeah, the silence is pretty loud there. So this second and third examples, they were different. They involved orbs.
Orbs, okay.
Okay.
Like the kind we hear about sometimes.
Seems like it. Images apparently showing these orbs moving, transiting from U.S. coastal facilities, military or otherwise, out over the ocean.
So buzzing our own sensitive sites.
The implication was definitely surveillance, yeah. And interestingly, the report tagged these as untasked collections.
Untasked, meaning what? Like accidental catches?
Sort of. It means the sensors, whatever they were, weren't specifically looking for these things. They just happened to capture them while doing other jobs, which suggests these things might be around quite a bit.
Wow, okay, so they're just background noise that our own systems are picking up incidentally. That's something. What was the fourth example?
The fourth one went back to a triangle, but this one was smaller, more angular, kind of a swept back shape.
Another triangle, different design. Where was this one?
This was over the Atlantic, again, above a Russian intelligence vessel, captured at night, green infrared image, smaller than the ship this time.
And the Russian reaction.
Same thing, no indicated response. The report apparently didn't say if it, popped up suddenly or if it was following the ship.
These triangles, though.
Yeah.
It feels like they're a recurring theme in these UAP accounts, doesn't it? It reinforces other sightings.
Absolutely. The whistleblower apparently found that part striking too. It really does echo other observations people have reported. It makes it harder to dismiss as just, isolated misidentifications.
Yeah, it suggests a pattern.
Yeah.
What else was in the report besides those 4 examples?
Well, there was a summary slide, and this slide basically indicated a global collection effort for UAP data, UAP and UAP-related incidents.
Global, so not just U.S. airspace.
Apparently worldwide. And using both tasked assets, so systems actively looking for this stuff, and these untasked assets we mentioned, where it's captured, incidentally.
So a global phenomena being tracked actively and passively, and these were just pictures.
Oh, they were described as freeze frame, like stills taken from video footage.
Oh, okay. Which implies there's probably actual video somewhere.
That's the logical conclusion, yeah, that a much larger collection of video probably exists. The report also apparently mentioned informal collections, like individuals who were interested just gathering stuff alongside the professional mission task databases.
Okay, so this person sees this pretty mind-blowing report. They've had training on handling sensitive stuff, SAP material. What do they do first?
Well, the training kind of clicked. They realized, okay, this is weird, extremely weird, but it looks like it could be really sensitive, maybe even SAP level special access program material. So the first instinct was, gotta report this.
Makes sense. So who did they go to?
The immediate supervisor, a retired Army colonel, apparently. They went into a secure facility, a SCIF, to talk about it.
Right, the proper channels, secure room. How did the colonel take the news of giant triangles and orb surveillance?
The reaction was blunt. The supervisor apparently just looked at them and said, delete it.
Delete it. Just like that.
Delete it. And then, according to the whistleblower, never mention it ever again.
Wow. That's not exactly standard procedure, I'm guessing. Sounds like make this problem go away.
It certainly suggests trying to avoid dealing with it, yeah. Bury it quick.
Okay, so attempt 1, shut down hard. What next? Did they just drop it?
No, they didn't, but they changed tactics. The next step was to go to higher management, but this time without showing them the report or mentioning the specifics.
Okay, a bit more cautious. How did they frame it?
They just inquired about the official protocol. Like, what do you do if you think you found spilled SAP material? Special access program stuff that's maybe somewhere it shouldn't be.
Smart. Playing it by the book, at least initially. Where did that lead?
That got them connected to the SAP control officer for the parent office, so the person officially in charge of handling this kind of classified material issue.
Right, the gatekeepers for SAP stuff. So they set up a meeting.
Yes, another meeting in a secure facility. This time, they actually showed the report to the SAP control officer.
Okay, moment of truth. What was this person's reaction? Any different?
Initially, nothing. Just no visible reaction at all. Blank face, apparently.
Seriously, looking at images of giant triangles over Russian ships and nothing. That's almost creepier than the delete it response.
Right. Then the SAP officer looked through it again and supposedly made a point of reacting dismissively to one particular slide.
Which slide?
One that mentioned Lou Elizondo. The SAP officer apparently downplayed it, kind of made light of it, acting like it wasn't serious.
Well, dismissing Elizondo's name. That feels significant somehow, like trying to undermine the whole topic.
It felt like that to the whistleblower too. Very dismissive, almost insincere. And then basically they were told to just leave. No formal report taken, no process initiated, just go away.
Unbelievable. No paperwork, no investigation, just thanks for coming. For potentially highly classified material.
Exactly. It seemed totally contrary to how you'd expect SAP material to be handled. The whistleblower definitely questioned the reaction. Was it fear? Denial, just following some unwritten rule? Hard to say.
And then came the confirmation that this wasn't just being ignored.
Right, the immediate confirmation. As soon as the whistleblower left that meeting, they checked the shared server again. The file, gone.
Vanished.
Yeah.
Just like that. Okay, that definitely screams cover-up or at least extreme sensitivity.
Absolutely. It sets off all kinds of alarm bells.
So they tried the supervisor, tried the SAP officer, got shut down both times, and the evidence disappears. What's going through this person's mind now? What makes them keep pushing?
Well, precisely that. The way it was handled, the reactions, the file vanishing, it all added up to this feeling that, quote, something rotten was going on. It wasn't just the content anymore, it was the cover-up attempt.
The process itself was the red flag.
Exactly. And later on, they got confirmation that Immaculate Constellation wasn't just a random file name, it was the actual name of a program. This became clearer, especially after David Grusch came forward, and suddenly people were Googling the term more.
So Grusch's testimony kind of corroborated the name, at least indirectly. This wasn't just some phantom document. There was a real program.
Seems so. And this whole experience, this growing unease, led the whistleblower to eventually write to Congress. They described the whole situation in that communication as deeply disturbing.
What specifically was so disturbing? Beyond the initial report, I mean.
Several things. The weird way bureaucracies were acting around the whole UAP topic, the fact that whistleblower protection laws were being pushed, suggesting a need for them, and also what they saw as like the open exchange of info within the UAP task force just kind of dying off, secrecy creeping back in.
So a pattern of avoidance and increasing secrecy across the board. Was there a tipping point, something specific that made them say, okay, I have to do more?
Yes, there was, a big one. While they were working at USDI under Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, they got access to transcripts.
Transcripts of what?
Briefings given by Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, the head of AARO at the time, to Senators Rubio, Warren, and Gillibrand. These were supposed to be updates on AARO's findings for Congress.
Oh, wow. Okay. Access to those briefings. What did they reveal?
According to the whistleblower, reading those transcripts was deeply concerning. They felt Kirkpatrick's briefings contained, well, distortions, downplaying of evidence, and potentially outright lies. especially regarding the data AARO had and the existence of these supposed legacy UAP programs.
Lies to Congress. That's a heavy accusation.
It is. And Senator Rubio's reported reaction after some of these briefings kind of backs up that feeling of concern. His quote was something like, "What the hell is the executive branch doing?"
Yeah, I remember that. That quote definitely made waves. It suggests even high-level senators felt they weren't getting the straight story. That must have been infuriating for the whistleblower who knew what they'd seen.
Extremely frustrating. And it solidified that feeling of being scared for your country, seeing what looked like active deception happening within the intelligence community directed at Congress itself.
Okay, so the existence of this Immaculate Constellation report clearly pointed to some kind of surveillance program. Did the whistleblower learn more about how this kind of data collection and, maybe more importantly, information control actually works?
Yes, the report itself was evidence of a collection mission, and the whistleblower pointed to the NRO's Sentient program, which is now public knowledge, at least the name is, as an example of how this might work.
Sentient. How does that fit in?
Well, it's reportedly a massive data collection and analysis system, potentially using AI or machine learning to sift through enormous amounts of sensor data with less direct human oversight. It can compartmentalize information automatically.
So AI could be filtering this UAP data before many humans even see it.
That's the implication. The whistleblower used this analogy of a two-faced God data, goes in one side, gets processed or filtered, and only certain cleared information comes out the other side for dissemination within the IC.
A two-faced God. That's a chilling image for intelligence gathering. What does that mean in practice for UAP data?
It could mean, as the whistleblower suggested, that there's a practice of whitewashing or clarifying UAP data, basically scrubbing it or recontextualizing it so it doesn't look anomalous, preventing a broader understanding even within the intelligence community.
But isn't that incredibly dangerous if you're filtering out potential unknowns or threats?
That's the core danger highlighted. If you censor intelligence products, you risk blinding your own people to real threats. It increases risks, undermines national security, and you hear this from military folks who report UAPs. They often feel left in the dark, sometimes even endangered, with no answers or follow-up.
Right, and didn't the whistleblower mention things like images just disappearing?
Yeah, there were anecdotes about images or data vanishing from systems. Now, they clarified that Immaculate Constellation itself wasn't necessarily the scrubbing program.
But the capability exists.
Exactly. The capability likely exists, perhaps within something like Sentient or a related system, to automatically identify and possibly remove or reclassify certain types of data.
It paints this picture of information silos, where data gets stuck or deliberately stopped.
Yeah, and they contrasted data control at, say, a combatant command level, where maybe there's more local control, versus data going into this central black box system. It leads to huge frustration operationally when people know data exists, but they can't access it or it doesn't reach them.
And just to clarify, where would a program like Immaculate Constellation sit organizationally?
The whistleblower speculated it was likely an intelligence SAP, focused on a specific mission collecting this type of data, rather than being tied to a specific piece of hardware or platform. Managed under intelligence authorities within the DoD, like maybe OSD policy or USDI, rather than purely acquisition or R&E.
Got it. Okay, so this whole ordeal, seeing the report, the failed reporting attempts, learning about Kirkpatrick's briefings, it all pushes the whistleblower towards Congress. What was that journey actually like, trying to get this sensitive info to the Hill?
Well, after seeing the report, the first step was actually doing some digging internally, trying to figure out just what does the government already know about UAPs.
Kind of scoping out the landscape first.
Right. Then, realizing the internal channels were blocked or compromised, the focus shifted to Congress, especially because of the whistleblower protection laws that had been put in place.
But just calling up a senator's office isn't usually how this works, is it?
No, apparently the initial attempts to make contact didn't go anywhere. Unsuccessful. So they started talking to other people, colleagues within the IC and military, people who maybe shared an interest in more transparency on this topic, kind of feeling things out.
Building a quiet network, maybe?
Possibly. It was driven by that sense that something wasn't right and feeling a sort of patriotic booty to get this information to the oversight committees.
So how did they finally make contact?
Eventually, they connected with Senate staff, specifically someone from SSCI, the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence Staff.
Okay, that's a major step. The committee with primary oversight.
Absolutely. They met in a secure location, and the whistleblower cautiously shared the Immaculate Constellation story, kind of hinting there was more behind it. The interaction felt genuine, promising.
A breakthrough. finally.
It seemed like it. The staffer promised follow-up meetings involving SAS, the Senate Armed Services Committee staff, and then eventually the elected senators from both committees.
Yeah.
But those follow-up meetings just never happened. Radio silence, which led to a lot of disillusionment. The whistleblower apparently started thinking, maybe my information just isn't important enough.
Ouch. After taking that risk, to be met with silence again, that's rough.
It is. Although, interestingly, that initial congressional contact did apparently start building a network of other potential whistleblowers based on that first meeting.
So even if the direct follow-up failed, it sparked something else. What did our whistleblower do then? Officially seek protection.
Yes, that's when they decided to formally pursue whistleblower protection. And around the same time, there was an unexpected job change, a move to the Department of State.
To state. Any connection?
Partly motivated, perhaps, by thinking it might offer better long-term protection or a different environment. But the interest in the UAP issue didn't go away.
No, especially after reading those Kirkpatrick transcripts later on at USTI.
Exactly. That solidified the need to act. And then came the failure of the first UAP Disclosure Act attempt, the one tied to the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act.
Right, that got watered down significantly in the end.
Yeah. And according to the whistleblower, that initial congressional contact actually reached back out and asked them to help start fires, basically, raise awareness, talk to media to try and save the UAPDA legislation.
Wow, being asked to go public, essentially.
Or at least connect with trusted media figures. But ultimately, the whistleblower felt that the government structures and even supposed allies weren't really providing the backup needed for whistleblowers, so that led them back to trying Congress again, directly.
Second attempt with Congress. How did that go?
They reached out to SSCI again, got a new staff contact this time, and learning from the first experience, they were very insistent. Any testimony, any notes needed to be formally written down and shared widely. SSCI, ACE, HASC, House Armed Services, HPSCI, House Intel. No more information getting lost in the shuffle.
Makes sense. Lock it down this time. Was it difficult writing it all up?
Apparently, it was a laborious process. Had to be done securely, obviously, with concerns about foreign intelligence maybe monitoring them. But they eventually produced a much longer, more detailed report.
Containing what? More than just the Immaculate Constellation story.
Yeah, details on specific programs, compartments, the whole narrative. This detailed report was finally submitted to SSCI. And eventually, they did get a meeting with SAS staff as well.
Progress. And did they do anything else to make sure this time it wouldn't just disappear?
Yes. They submitted the report for pre-publication review at their current job, the State Department, and they briefed state leadership on it.
Why state?
The thinking was, make the information known within another official channel, make it a little dangerous so it couldn't be easily ignored or buried by just one committee or agency, put it on the record.
Spreading the risk and the awareness. Did state try to block it?
Interestingly, no. They apparently got a brief confirmation back saying, basically, proceed. No redactions requested, no major pushback. Though the whistleblower apparently still felt, cautious about how much impact it would truly have.
So the report went to SSCI, SS, and was known at state. And a copy went to SAS before any media saw it.
Correct. They made sure the committees had it first.
And what was the very next step mentioned in this account?
The next step mentioned was a meeting planned with Michael Schellenberger, the journalist, indicating the journey to get this information out was still ongoing.
Okay, so let's recap this deep dive then. We started with Immaculate Constellation, this report, with, frankly, stunning visual evidence, it seems, of UAPs interacting with military assets, Russian ones even, globally.
Right, and then the whistleblower's attempts to report it internally hit these major roadblocks, direct orders to delete it, dismissive officials, vanishing files. It really highlighted potential deception and serious information control happening inside the government when it comes to UAPs.
Yeah, following their whole journey, you really get a sense of the bureaucratic maze, the potential for information to be downplayed, distorted, maybe even misrepresented, like with those Kirkpatrick transcripts. It's quite a story.
Absolutely. So hopefully you listening feel like you've got a much better handle on this specific, complex account now. It goes way beyond just a headline.
Definitely. And it leaves us with a pretty provocative thought, doesn't it? If this whistleblower's experience is indicative, if advanced tech and knowledge really are being, as they put it, tightly controlled and suppressed and distorted, What does that actually mean?
Yeah, what does it mean for our understanding of reality, for science, for discovery? And maybe the biggest question, what other immaculate constellations, what other hidden pockets of information might still be out there, just completely hidden from view?
Something to chew on for sure.